All right, guys, so in this video, we're gonna get into it. 10 reasons why Chandler, Arizona might not be right for you. Chandler is a great place, but there's definitely reasons that people leave or never come to begin with. We're gonna get into those 10 reasons right now. Hey guys, David Van Ashe here, and if this is your first time to this channel and you want to learn everything about what it's like to work, eat, sleep, live, and play here in Chandler and the greater Phoenix area, make sure to click that subscribe button and tap the bell to get notified every time that we put out a new video. And honestly, we're getting so many phone calls, emails, text messages every single day from people looking to move and relocate here to Chandler and the greater Phoenix area. We absolutely love it. So if you're even thinking about moving to Chandler or the greater Phoenix area, pick up the phone, give us a call, shoot us an email, send us a text message. Days, nights, weekends, we've got your back when moving to the Chandler and Phoenix area. Now, 10 reasons why Chandler might not be right for you. Number 10 is snowbird traffic. Now, if you don't know what that means, so Arizona for a long time has been traditionally a place where a lot of people from cold, wet places during the winter typically will have a second home here in Chandler, Gilbert Mesa, or the surrounding Phoenix metro, and they come down here for 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months of the year. What that ultimately means is that we have a lot more people driving around on the roads for those, winter months. The snowbirds, the birds fly south for the winter, they fly north for the summer. Makes sense, right? So that being said, we do have a lot more traffic during the winter months. However, because the city is so modern and so new, you gotta remember, before 1960, 1950, there was basically nobody here. And since that time, we've built major freeways and loops and arterials, and we have a really good infrastructure system. So even with all the extra traffic, it's not necessarily that bad, but you do notice a definite increase in number of cars driving around during these 3 or 4 months of the winter. So snowbird traffic, number 10. All right, so reason number 9 not to move to Chandler, Arizona, we have a significantly higher than average cost of living, about 18% above the national average. Now, what that means, a lot of people want to live here and they continue to move here, especially since 2020 when we had the C word, COVID. Prices of houses have gone through the roof around here. It is not an inexpensive place to live, but there's a couple main reasons for that. We have tons of high-tech jobs. Intel is a major anchor that started operations in Chandler way back in 1979, 1980. And since then, it's just exploded with a ton of other companies. There's 700 companies in the price corridor alone in Chandler that take care of corporate offices. There's just everything going on. So cost of living is higher, but then again, so are the jobs. So keep in mind, if you're moving here for a job, especially, make sure that whatever your employer is offering you is going to help offset whatever increase potentially that you might have. If you're coming from the Midwest, especially, there's a lot of sticker shock. If you're coming from places like Los Angeles or Oregon or Seattle or New York, probably you're gonna find the opposite is true. It's actually a lower cost of living for you guys. But I was in North Dakota for 10 years. So coming from North Dakota to here, there's definitely a shock when you're going from an average of $280,000, $325,000 homes to $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 homes. It can kind of mess with you a little bit about what your expectations and the reality were. So make sure you do your research on that. Reason number 8, obviously everybody knows it gets hot here in the summer. What people don't know or don't realize is during the day in the peak of summer, especially on those extremely warm days, yeah, you're gonna be probably stuck inside with the air conditioning. You got your air conditioned car, and if you work inside, you're gonna have an air conditioned office. But after the sun goes down, you can still go out. The reality is it's still pretty warm. Misters help. We have a very dry climate, so a lot of restaurants and backyard patios will have, high pressure mister systems installed to help drop that temperature. But the reality is, up until you start pushing around 3, 4, 5 in the morning, the early hours, it doesn't really cool off that much. And one thing you're going to keep in mind, especially if you're a dog lover like I am, your puppies are going to have to stay inside. It's really hard to go for any kind of walk anytime during the day or night. The pavement and the concrete and everything, it absorbs that heat all day and it radiates that heat at night. So you're going to want to wait till first thing early in the morning to take the dogs for a walk. Otherwise, you can find on Amazon some dog booties and things like that to protect their paws. Long story short, if you can take your hand and you can put it on the pavement, it's probably safe for them too, but you're gonna wanna make that test. But that's a reality of living here, in that it does get hot in the summertime. You're gonna wanna protect the puppies and the cats and everybody else like that. We'll go on to the next one. number 7, scorpions and spiders and snakes, oh my. Well, to be honest, I've never seen a snake, at least not in the city limits areas. If you're out hiking in the wilderness, that's a different thing. There are rattlesnakes and other snakes out there. A lot of times they don't really mess with you. As long as you stay clear of them, they'll stay clear of you. They, shake and they'll let you know that there's a problem or that they don't want you near them. But as far as scorpions and spiders, yeah, that's a real thing. Fortunately, there's dozens of pest control companies that come through, and it's another thing that you have to add on to your expense list. You definitely want to have a pest control company come to your home on a regular basis. Usually it's every 60 days. They'll do their spraying, and they have some powders and things they put on the perimeter walls. And that's another thing, walls. We don't really have fences separating our yard. They're usually block walls most of the time. But there are services that help do that, mitigate that issue so that you can have a scorpion-free yard and backyard and house. One thing though to keep in mind, if you are really concerned about it, and it's okay to be concerned, it's real, but on Amazon you can grab yourself a little flashlight blacklight. One cool thing that I didn't know about scorpions before moving here was that they actually glow in the dark, like under a blacklight, kind of like those stars you stick in the ceiling for your kids. So if you're going to be walking outdoors, especially if you're going to do it barefoot around the pool, things like that, you just want to be overly precautious. Grab a flashlight, a blacklight, and go ahead and shine it in front of you, because those guys, they stand out just like that. You can't miss them. They glow bright. So that's a good thing as far as being able to spot them. You don't have to worry too much about that. So reason number 6, not to move to Chandler, Arizona. A big thing that might be a shock to some people, we drive really, really fast here. It's unusual to get pulled over by the police for speeding. It does happen. There's YouTube channels out there about that, but the reality is the vast majority of people here in the area speed excessively. I mean, if you're on the freeway and it's a posted 65, if you're in that far left lane, probably 85, 90 miles an hour is pretty realistic. I mean, yeah, you're still chancing getting pulled over, but I've never gotten pulled over for it, knock on wood, but the reality is that's one thing that's a huge change for people that are coming here, especially from the Midwest and areas where it's a slower, more peaceful way of living. We are a metropolitan city area now, even though we have some really great smaller town areas, and our neighborhoods themselves are very quiet and peaceful. But once you get out of your neighborhood and you get on the main arterials or onto the freeways, just be aware of the fact that drivers here are really fast, and if you're not prepared for that, it's going to be a shock for you. So fast drivers is kind of a way of life here. 5, not to move to Chandler, Arizona is, it depends on kind of what you're looking for as far as styles of homes, but the reality is, especially here in Chandler and Gilbert, most of the homes are not that old compared to other parts of the country. I mean, if you go back on the East Coast, you can find homes in New York like are literally hundreds of years old. The reality is, nobody really lived here before the 1950s other than, some farmers and some smaller activity and mining people, but, it was not a metropolitan city by any stretch of the imagination because there was no air conditioning. Air conditioning didn't come around until the 50s, 60s, and onward, which allowed people to live here around. So that said, there's not a lot of variety of architecture and homes in the sense that, you can get an old colonial or something like that in other parts of the country. Here, everything kind of is a very similar stucco, lots of shades of brown, and because it's dusty, we want to paint our houses brown to hide the dirt. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. So that is a reality of living here, is that there's not a massive variety of different homes. There are some pocket neighborhoods, of course, where you can find some more, older homes. Before, I think the 1980s, a lot of homes were built out of stone block, and then they switched over to, stick frame standard construction that we're used to today. So that's a big thing that surprises a lot of people, is that as you're shopping around and looking around the neighborhood here in Chandler, most of the neighborhoods and most of the houses have a lot of similarities, even from your big $2 or $3 million homes down to your $400,000 or $500,000 or your, even your condos. The style of construction and style of home are fairly homogenous throughout the area, which that definitely surprises a lot of people. That's not to say that we can't find something that's a really good fit for you, but just know that the differences between homes are a little bit more subtle than in other parts of the country where it's very drastically different. All right, so reason number 4 not to move to Chandler, we're in a desert. I mean, the reality is there isn't sand everywhere, but the reality is it is a desert, and anytime there are trees, they're irrigated, right? So somebody planted it there and they have a water supply line to keep it alive and keep it growing. That's to say, if you're used to like the Pacific Northwest or places in Minnesota or other places where trees are abundant and everywhere, you're not gonna find that here. I mean, there are definitely neighborhoods that specialize in having trees and green and a lot of things like that going on, but what you're gonna find find more and more, there's a lot of desert landscaping. And what that means is, a lot of rock, small bushes and some cacti and things like that. If you want to see what really nice, desert landscape can look like, the Desert Botanical Garden over in Phoenix, great place. I have a membership there. We take, whenever we have friends from out of town come in, we tour it, and there's a nice restaurant called Gertrude's over there. But great spot to kind of just tour and find out like how beautiful but different it might be from what you're used to a desert landscape can be. So just keep in mind, there's not a lot of trees, not a lot of shade. It depends on kind of how you're set up. Myself, I have a couple of palm trees in my backyard, but again, they're irrigated. You got to plan for that. You're gonna have a little bit higher water bill because of it. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for and what you want. A lot of the newer construction homes, especially in the last 10 years, they're going away with trees. There's not a lot of that because water conservation is becoming a more and more important thing, especially in planning and building out of new neighborhoods. So if you're looking for a neighborhood that does have trees, there are several in Chandler and in the surrounding areas, Gilbert, Tempe, and whatnot, that have them, but you're gonna be definitely looking at older style homes and older neighborhoods. So that's just, something to look into, and we can look at in detail later. So, all right, so reason number 3, not to move to Chandler, or really the entire Phoenix area for that matter, hard water. We definitely have hard water. If you don't have, a specialized system on your home in order to clean and filter that, you're gonna start noticing it, especially on your appliances, your dishwasher, your faucet on your sink, things like that are gonna start easily building up that calcium, and that just destroys, appliances. Of course, it's not really good for your hair and your skin either. So water softeners are super common here. There are some other like reverse osmosis systems and things like that people do use and install, but you're gonna wanna be aware, hard water is a fact of life here in the Phoenix area, including Chandler. So be warned. All right, so number 2 reason not to move to Chandler, and I'm gonna be pushing a hot button here. I know it's a political thing. Schools, compared to a lot of other places in the country, are severely underfunded. Historically, a lot of the tax base and the people that have lived in Chandler in the past have been a lot of retirees. They did their time. They already have their kids. Their kids are grown and gone. They want to have their second home here in Arizona. So a lot of times when people are voting for the school bonds and things like that, they get voted down. We are seeing that change a little bit, especially with how many families are now moving to the area over the last several years, and that trend continues to go. But that said, there's actually a lot of variety of school systems. When you go to school here, you have kids here, you're not stuck to one particular school system. I mean, they have the traditional public schools for Chandler School District, which I'm involved in high school wrestling, so I see a lot of that from that perspective. From what I can tell, everyone there really does care, and they do a great job with the resources they have. In fact, if you pull up on Google, the average test scores and things like that for, students in Chandler and how they perform, they're actually performing really, really well, considering how little money they have in comparison to places like Southern California or in the Seattle area where I grew up originally. So you could argue that while it's underfunded, they definitely make the most of the money they have and do a fairly really good job at it. One thing, fun fact, Chandler High School is definitely one of the top football programs in the entire state. They frequently are seen at the state championship. So if you're a football fan and you want to see high school sports, check out Chandler High School and don't miss the season. All right, so reason number 1, this could be in a different order. This is just mine, not to move to Chandler. We have some scary weather sometimes in the summertime here. We have what's called the monsoon season. Monsoon is basically dust storm, and you got some great static electricity and thunder and lightning and just massive downpours. One thing, if you're gonna be, walking around or driving around, to just notice, when you're in the streets and you look at the sidewalks, the curbs are really big in most of the places, especially if it's been built in the last 30 years. They plan for these storms, so we do get flooding in the streets. So when it rains heavily during monsoon season, it usually comes on pretty quick and unexpectedly. Even the weatherman doesn't usually give that far advance notice of a storm coming. They just kind of erupt out of nowhere, it seems like. So it's kind of wild. You can go on Google and type in Arizona monsoons, and you can get some really cool photos of what that looks like. The air looks kind of orange and it's that way. But just know that, that's a big issue for a lot of people. That dust storm comes in, the rain comes down, the streets flood. A lot of the little parks in the neighborhoods are actually designed to be water retention ponds. I mean, seriously, it rains so hard, so fast, the water has to have somewhere to go. And so when it rains and it goes into gutters, a lot of times these playgrounds, especially after a big storm like that, can literally be under several feet of water if it's a really good one. I know the kids, when it's starting to recede, really enjoying that. I saw a bunch of kids out there splashing in the mud puddles and climbing up and coming down the slide and going into the water. So take what you can get out of that, but it's a very small part of the year, but we do have some pretty significant storms to contend with,
throughout the summer months. But I'll say that rain does kind of, you know, it brings in some excitement other than the never-ending heat, especially June, July, and August, that period that the heat, you know, it can get to you. Fortunately, you can drive 2 hours north or 3 hours north of Flagstaff, or 2 hours up to like Show Low, you know, northeastern Arizona, those kind of things, and get a little bit cooler temperatures that way. But that's it.
To help you narrow down some ideas, all we gotta do is hear about a few things that you know you like, a few things that you know you don't like, the style of home you're attracted to, where your job is, or maybe you work from home, or look, maybe you don't work at all. Maybe you're retired and thinking about life here in the sunshine. What is your ideal lifestyle, and what do you want to be close to? Once we know, we're gonna instantly know the best neighborhoods to show you. But the only way we can do this is you gotta reach out. You gotta pick up the phone and call us. You gotta send us a text, shoot us an email. Days, nights, weekends, we've got your back when moving to Chandler, Arizona. Hey, and until the next video, guys, we'll catch you later.